So are you going to tell him or am I going to tell him? Because whoever it is that's on the right-hand side, it's you. You're on the right-hand side of the screen. You have to tell him all this. Listen, all the oddies getting in our comments saying, oh, the show's probably not even going to start. They're going to have technical problems. I wonder if Carly's Mac is going to explode in a ball of flames. Now, to be fair, that's probably more credible. That is likely. But I'm just saying, like, oh, you've little faith. We've always had a show. I mean, it's sometimes a crap show and sometimes the technology is shite. But we do eventually get there, don't we?
For someone who talks so much smack about my tech products, you sure do ask for my assistance to help you out of a blind spot a lot. I'm just saying. And for someone who sits there and says, oh, are we going to start on time? Need I mention, I have been present for every single episode. Who, pray tell who, has had to reschedule or not be here or make me start on my own?
Someone who is important enough to be needed elsewhere. That's what you're not quite grasping there, Carly. A man in demand over here. Man in demand over here. Although I will say you're getting your own back this week with your little trip to Sydney tomorrow. Do you want to tell us about that?
I'm important. That's what I am.
No,
important.
you are. Hang on. No, whoa. Stop. Did Mike Cannon-Brookes loan you his jet?
I have asked. I'm waiting to hear back. But I mean, if it's good enough for Lady Gaga, it's good enough for me. That's what I'm saying.
Well, okay, but are you good enough for it? It's like, this is what I'm saying. He offered it to Lady Gaga. He hasn't offered it to you. I'm just saying there's still some work to be done. Okay, that's not trying to start nothing. I'm just saying.
Am I confused, or did you just imply that Lady Gaga had more talent than me?
Next question. Sorry, you're breaking up. The connection's gone bad. Sorry, we've lost Carly off the show. Looks like I'm doing a solo tonight, guys. That's what a crying shame. Even worse, she's back.
This is
so what are you going to?
This is my impressed face.
For those that don't know,
read this. Read what G said. Hang on, come back.
Yeah, but it shows my grays more. Like, honestly, look at some of this. Look at some of what's going on here. Yeah. I'm horrified.
Age comes for the best of us.
I've got like a streak of grays in here. Like, no, this is not good.
You could do the P. Diddy and just walk around with a barber and just like dye your hair every week.
You know who I'm jealous about? What's her name? In the US, Tulsi Gabbard with that black hair with that streak of white. Like, that is some serious Cruella de Vil like shit going on, and I'm so like to have that naturally and be able to say no, that is actually just my hair. That is cool.
I need to address this. I saw this and I'm like, I need to address this. Hang on. Mate, you only could dream. You could only dream, friend. I did, however, go to university in Warrnambool. So what kind of debauchery I got up to down there is not for this stream. But thank you for asking.
That question alone was worth the price of admission. You got your ticket. You got your money's worth tonight already, everybody. That is legendary. Awesome.
Good times.
We still haven't got to the reason.
Yes. We weaved in a lot of jokes then, but I feel like we need to tell people. Okay, first one. I just made a reel, and in this reel, I discovered today that Mike Cannon-Brookes, friend of the show, who we've discussed a lot in regards to his
ad nauseum, let's be honest.
Yeah, in regards to his purchase of or acquisition, I guess you could say, of a private jet that cost him $120 million. I learned two new things about it. One is that he's now renting that jet to Atlassian and has been able to recoup over $6 million in costs for renting that private jet out to his own company. Great way to money launder. That's what I'm saying. Allegedly, I'm just saying if you need to get money out of your company, leasing your private jet to it might be a good way to do it. And secondly, Lady Gaga, who's also incredibly woke, flew into Australia on Mike Cannon-Brookes' plane. So I don't know what the connection is there, but put your conspiracy hat on, and I'm sure we could come up with something.
Ben, I stand corrected. I'm so sorry for criticizing Mike Cannon-Brookes. I didn't realize he'd bought one of the environmentally friendly ones. I mean, that explains it
green.
Really.
If you paint it green, it negates all the carbon.
Oh, is that? That's so green cars only really does just mean like green colored cars.
Yeah, literally the color green. Yeah, if you look at it, it's green and silver. So, you know.
Yeah, greenish. We still haven't answered the question as to what's so special about you and why you're in Sydney tomorrow.
So I'm in Sydney because I'm appearing on a substantially large podcast who I don't want to mention until it's all happened, but
Sure.
a little bit nervous about it, to be honest, because it's sort of like it's a big podcast. It's a very well-known podcast. So
Yeah. It's going to be good.
And
It's going to be good.
they found me through my Instagram reels.
So they know you. They know you've got some. They know you got some opinions. You're
Oh,
gonna be throwing some shade.
Yeah. And what I sent them a copy of this, and they were like, "We want to unpack this. This is brilliant." So,
have you told them about chicken in the noodle aisle?
Yes, I have, and unfortunately, I only get an hour, so there's only so long. But I feel like it'll sort of weave between me talking about fascism and socialism and then chicken in the noodle aisle. It'll all sort of come back.
You will find a way. If anyone can do it, it's going to be you. Now, speaking of throwing shade, can I just say, Wayne just walked in late and chose violence. Right? Sorry, I'm late. I'm so used to technical difficulties.
Are you implying that we are creatures of habit?
Excuse me, Wayne? Listen, I mean, I have a ban button right here, and I can pretend it was technical difficulties that was the reason you couldn't get back on. All right, so just you watch your mouth, young whippersnapper.
I love this. Carl's will be one of the girls on the Whatever podcast. Yeah, on the wrong side of the aisle, and I'll just sit there and act like a crazy person. That'd be great for ratings. Can you imagine if I just go full woke tard and just like start saying things like, I identify as like a chicken biscuit because like I love my dog and my dog likes chicken, and I think that makes sense. I don't even know what I said, but that's also
that
what
was a little bit too authentic. That was yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's where Carly's really at her best. Absolutely unstoppable.
Did I talk about this on the podcast? Oh, I did. I talked about it on Wednesday. I forget what we talked about. I got told off. The only comeback to my reel about Adam Hyde was that I was too eloquent.
Right.
Apparently, we embrace poor literacy rates, and that's a cool thing.
Yeah. Well, obviously, if you are articulate and well educated, then you're not as high on the victim status poll. So, talking ghetto proves that you actually are higher status in the only status that matters, which is victimhood.
Hang on. I can identify as a Mars resident, Aboriginal, they, them. Beat that.
Okay.
Just quietly. I feel like
I'm not going to try and beat that because I identify as sane. So that's a game I ain't going to play.
You want a discount on your health insurance? Be a they, them.
Oh yeah, be all of them. Be all of them. So listen.
Today's episode.
Hang on. Yeah, I was going to say we talked about on the main show. We always do the topics at the start. The start has already kind of bolted. We're 8.5 minutes in, but should we do the topics?
Sure. Well, we've got a few, and so I figured the audience can determine which direction we go. So, first one. We've got this Annika Wells. She's a Labor MP who's coming under fire for her travel expenses. Now, this is not not your usual, she, borrowed the stapler and took some pens from the office cabinet. There's some genuine charges here. And Prime Minister Albanese has come out defending her, saying this all falls under the scope of her job. And to be fair, she is, I think it's like communications minister, and she had to go to the Olympics, and she's had to go to the Paralympics and things like that. So I understand there's their job, and I will say this. Here I am already defending her before I've told the story. When it comes to travel, particularly for work, you can't fly cattle class. You just can't. If you're expected to perform on the other end, you can't sit there with your knees up around your neck and not sleep and then be expected to go into like parliamentary meetings and, meet heads of state. You can't do that. So I understand the business, right? So having said that, I understand why the flights are a bit more expensive. But there's things in there about her travel to Thredbo for a party, to Adelaide, and a whole host of other things. So we've got that story. And then because
we're family reunification in there as well.
Yeah, and because we have that story, because remember, at the crux of this, we have a cost of living crisis. We have people who are genuinely having to decide, do they buy groceries or do they turn on the heating at the moment? Like that is the reality for a lot of people. And so when you see this sort of overspending and this taxpayer rorts, particularly like with the bomb website and stuff, you kind of go, Hmm. And then we've got Jacinta Allen and her government have decided they're going to finally crack down on all of this underbelly crime in the CFMEU
Yes. Oh,
after
yes.
after almost 8 years of them rorting the system and taking all the money out of the big build project. So, I mean, allegedly.
Yeah.
Allegedly, this is all
Allegedly.
allegedly.
But Captain Jacinta is on the case. We know how tough on crime she is. We know how effective her toughest bail laws in the world have been. So I have no doubt that if anyone could get to the bottom of what's really gone on with the CFMEU, it's going to be her.
Who better to call out the CFMEU than the wife of someone who used to be at the top of the CFMEU?
Yeah. Yep.
I'm just saying.
And we have
who
no
better?
reason to believe that it was any better back then. Yep. 100%.
And what's
100%.
worse, I don't know if you saw this. This is very Victoria centric, but it's very on brand for Australia. Tim Pallas, the ex-treasurer under the Andrews government, is now the head of the person looking into all the rorting.
Yeah, 100%. Nothing to see here. This is the thing. The people that have been involved in all of the corruption before are most qualified to investigate the corruption now. That's why they do it this way, Carly. You don't think the right way.
People who rubber stamp the corruption are really good at then also just being able to shuffle the papers so you don't find the corruption. Who knew?
See, they're able to find exactly where the corruption is and make sure that everyone looks the other way. That's It's beautiful. It's beautiful, really.
And then I thought we could zoom out because I know you want to talk about America because we've now got a massive crisis in America with the Somalis in Minnesota and Tim Walz. And it's all just, I feel like there's always a theme and the universe is just like, hey, let's just roll with this theme of the haves and the haves nots. So this week has been a real week of, sort of the emperor was the emperor's new clothes, right? And they keep selling us something and yet we're looking at it objectively going, that's not there. Yeah. And then I've got another story, which is like completely off topic, but at the same time, the same thing. A well-known NFL icon has come out lamenting the fact that $100 million salary is not substantial enough to live on, and you don't understand how hard it is to live off that.
I feel so bad for him. Yeah, feel so bad.
Look, $25 million a year, that would be tough. I mean, how many Rolls Royces could you buy? Not enough. Not enough to do like the spectrum of the rainbow for sure. So I understand. So that's that.
The other thing, Carly, that gets really expensive when you're one of those people is you always have to buy his and hers matching everything. And when you live like that, it's his and hers and hers and hers and a couple more hers on the side. So that's where it gets really expensive.
And the little ones that come with all those hers as well, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, you try not to pay for those. Yeah, you try not to have to pay for them.
So that's that. And then, of course, we've got what's going on in the EU at the moment. We've got the digital, I was going to say digital ID, but we have the social media ban starting in 2 days.
Yes, and we also need to talk about what's happening on the 27th because there's a lot of fear-mongering and misinformation going around about the 27th of this month as well. There's a new code of conduct that comes in.
Oh, yes. And the last one was, since we've talked about it before, the Diddy documentary made by 50 Cent came out, and G and I binged it yesterday. And I'm just, I got to tell you guys, if you can stomach it, it's worth watching because I don't know how much you guys know about, Biggie and Tupac and this whole thing. But you talk about corruption and how it, the fish rots from the head, right? I feel like at the moment, whether it's the entertainment industry, it's Australian politics, it's American politics, all of this is starting to come to light. It's all starting to come out. And it just feels a little bit like it's been orchestrated. I don't know.
So here's the question. Did he do it?
Oh, yeah. I think watching that and having been in the generation, like I grew up the whole Tupac Biggie thing, East Coast, West Coast kind of deal.
Yeah.
And then seeing all that happen. The way the evidence is presented, and obviously it's a documentary and it's made by like one of his biggest haters, 50 Cent.
Yeah,
but
they're trying to make a point.
In my mind, I think you could argue that Diddy is responsible for quite a handful of deaths. Easily.
Yeah, well.
Whether he did it himself or he had a role in it.
Now, before we get stuck into the serious stuff, did you end up queuing up that video that we talked about?
I can find it now. Hang on.
See if you can find that. So this is a parody video, everybody. We're not peddling misinformation. This was done as a parody. But if you're taking notes, this is a good use of AI. This is what you do with AI because it's freaking hilarious. And unfortunately a little bit closer to the truth than is entirely comfortable.
All right, I've
once
got it.
people find it. You got it?
Yeah,
All
I
right.
got it. Nothing gets away from me on the internet. Yeah, here we are.
Nothing is safe.
I can't wait till we have a Jamie. Jamie, can I just say? All right.
Yeah.
I
All
will
right,
play it
here we
again
go.
from the start. 1 minute.
Crackdown on podcasting. This type of gear now banned across Australia.
We are saying to retailers, get these dangerous weapons out of your stores, off the shelves, because what we want to do is choke the supply.
Authorities have set up amnesty bins to encourage guilt-free disposal of recording equipment. 1 in 2 men have started a podcast, but a shocking 100% thought about it.
I think a lot of young guys fall into the trap of thinking they're interesting.
Josh Garlop started a podcast after a night out with friends Harry and Giorgio.
Giorgio was doing his Trump impression. That's it. I lost it. And Harry just goes, this is the podcast, like right now. I bought the equipment right there. It was too easy.
There you go. Sorry. There you go. Look at it. Sports Live. This is episode 1. It's like, it's going to be fucked up.
The Beers and Sport and Beers podcast was born, but after 2 episodes, recording stopped.
No one listened, and if they did, they were really mean.
We thought we were going to be the next Theo Von.
There'll be 251 podcast bins across Australia in hotspots like Bondi, Cremorne, run clubs, and most importantly, private boys' schools reunions.
You don't even need to know anything. Just buy the stuff. It's awesome.
Philosophy.
Luke Bailey and friends Tom and Diesel run the D&M podcast and say the amnesty will save lives.
You wouldn't believe the amount of people who've messaged us saying that they listened to an episode and said that they've wanted to walk out into traffic.
So then I said, let them.
There are concerns an outright ban will push the industry underground and that the bins will be targeted by wannabe podcasters.
That's good. That's hilarious.
Isn't it great? Isn't it great?
That's a good use of everyone's free will, can I say?
Yeah. So a little bit of AI augmentation, lots of just indie backyard filmmaking, and a great clip. Well done, them.
Do you know what's funny is there's a lot of satire going at the moment, and I saw a couple of the accounts that I follow falling for it, and they're posting it as if it's real news. But, truth is stranger than fiction at this point. And I think what that underpins is that across mainstream, and I'm definitely seeing this in a lot of my industry, there is a genuine threat there for independents like yourself and me who are unencumbered by advertisers and things like that and are just saying the thing, So that's why they went so hard at Rogan and other podcasters. And now in Australia, it's sort of like, we're not saying anything bad. We're just saying it with reckless abandon,
Yeah. Sen09 from space, you do not want to see me with a shaved head. Some people look really good with a shaved head. Like their head has just a really good shape for it. If you want it, no one wants to picture my head without hair, but if you just wanted to do yourself that mental anguish, imagine a sack of potatoes. Now hit that sack of potatoes with a truck. And that is approximately what you will get if you shave my head. It isn't good. Trust me, it isn't good.
It's not good. It's not what we want to see, but it's fine. It's just another reason to laugh at you, which would be perfect, to be honest.
Well, I didn't think you needed any. You seem to just do it without
I
cause.
Don't, but so where do you want to pick up? Where do you want to start?
Oh goodness! All right, so let's do something really wild and start with the story that we told everyone about in the thumbnail and stuff, so that we don't leave it and not get to it. So let's start there.
Okay. So we've got it. Okay, we'll start with this one. Annika Wells. Let me just remove this guy and then add this one. It's so stupid how you can't have these lined up. Anyway, whatever.
Okay. That is a great roast. Topher has a great roast. Sorry, Topher has a great voice for Coachella implants.
Coachella implants? I don't know what that means.
I'm moving on. I think I know what it means. Moving on.
Okay. Coachella, like the music festival? I don't know.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay. So this is the leading story. And I've brought up the ABC's article because it is the most impressive framing I've seen from our taxpayer-funded ABC. The way this article was written was just chef's kiss. So I'm going to read it to you guys. Here we go.
Okay.
So this is Annika Wells. and she is the taxpayer-funded Thredbo ski trip lady, right? So you may have heard about this in the news, but I just want to read this opening paragraph from the ABC. Political life is grueling. Being a minister, especially a working mother with young children who must spend so many hours away from home, can be overwhelmingly difficult. When you are a minister, the requirements of your time and diary are never ending. Families become the collateral damage, and politics has destroyed many relationships in the past. Canberra is littered with stories of emotional destruction. Everyone has a war story. And this is where the latest revelations around Communications Minister Annika Wells becomes complicated.
Yeah, it's great. It's like when someone complains that 100 million is not enough to live on. It's kind of like, is it though? Right? You know, like really?
How is the framing of that? Before they've even told us the story, she's a mum. She's had to spend time away from the children.
Oh, no.
The
And
children.
she's only paid a couple of $100,000 a year to do that.
Plus expenses, plus benefits, and
That's
plus
right.
the very cushy job that she'll be parachuted in at the end of her tenure.
Yeah, that's right.
This is sensational. This is ABC fucking top marks to you. I thought this was brilliant. So, oh, hang on. What did
Where'd
you
you
pick
go?
me up for? There we
That
are.
was not
All right.
me. I didn't do it.
So this is good old Elbow, and he's come out and said it was completely within the rules. And the ABC admits this doesn't pass the sniff test. So he yesterday defended Annika Wells' use of nearly $3,000 of taxpayer money on travel allowances and flights so her husband and children could join her for a weekend at Thredbo Ski Resort. You know, I would love to go to Thredbo, but it is a rather elitist sport, snow skiing and snowboarding. So it's not for humble little me. The sport and Communications Minister spent 2 nights in Thredbo and after being invited by the Paralympics Australia to its adaptive festival. Anyway, was she working? It certainly seems so. Was it necessary to see her family? Undoubtedly, it was for her. And it's only natural for children to want to see their mum. But should a politician charge taxpayers for a family reunion at the ski resort? It is unlikely most Australians would think this is fair. So anyway, it keeps going on, but the cost of her travel has been actually quite extraordinary. So I don't know if they go to it in here because it's the ABC and this is like a fluff piece if I ever saw one. But she had $100,000 trip to New York with a staffer to join him with Penny Wong.
I'll take 2.
Yep. And of course, she was doing her job as a communications minister, so that's fine. She also spent $100,000 going to and from Paris 3 times in a year. And she's gone to Adelaide multiple times, all of this paid for by the taxpayer. So I just think in the current climate that we're living in, this is a very bad look for a government who is only increasing the taxes from the middle class like you and I because they can't get a handle on their spending problem. And yet we find out things like this. You know, it's insulting to our intelligence, frankly.
Yeah, look, it is, but there's been so little consequences for these sorts of scandals for so long that they genuinely believe, and unfortunately they're probably right, that they can just bully their way through it and it will go away. You know, I mean, here's a great question here. You know, what about Bronwyn Bishop and her $5,000 helicopter trip? You know, I think back to there was a Victorian MP whose name I will get in a moment, Jeff Shaw. He lost his seat. He was kicked out of Parliament because he was found to have used a taxpayer-funded ute for party purposes rather than for taxpayers' purposes. He used it to transport some corflutes and things in relation to an election campaign, right?
Right.
He lost his seat. We're talking, gosh, this has got to be the better part of 18 or so, 16, 17, 18 years ago, right? That was enough to get him to lose his seat back then. Now, they're spending $100,000 at a pop, and it's like, oh well, no, it's completely understandable.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's rules for thee, but not for me, kind of deal. And look, you know, as you and I sort of said before we jumped on, I don't care if you have money and you spend it. Like I say, good on you. If you have money like Mike Cannon-Brook, and you can afford 100%. The waterfront mansion in Sydney and the private jet, I say. Go for it. I'm cool with it. I don't care. But you don't get to sit there and grandstand to the average Australian and tell us that, you know, we need to rein in our spending and we spend too much on avocado toast and coffees. And that's the reason that we can't afford to pay for our electricity bill. And then you have this kind of rampant spending. Like, if it were 2012 and everything seemed to be okay, then I think most Aussies would be like, yeah. But now it's getting to a point, and this is the whole revolution eventually eats their own. Because remember, for the last 5 years, we've had Albanese and also obviously Jacinda down in Victoria talking to us about how terrible the Liberals are and how elite they are and how, they want to see us stripped of all the benefits that we get from the government. And yet here we find out that, hang on, not only are we paying, was it 45% tax, or it's more than that now?
It's more than that, yeah.
And this is what it's paying for.
Yeah. But there's another layer on top of this as well. I'm sick and tired of hearing people complain about the fact that they got what they fought for and wanted. Right? That you don't get elected by accident. You don't become the communications minister by accident. You have to want it. You have to tread over the heads of other people who are also going for it. You have to have fought and grafted your way up the slippery pole of politics to finally get to the point where you can seize that prize that you've been fighting for all this time. They're getting paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to do it. They got what they wanted. Shut up. This is what you wanted. Congratulations, you got it. Now shut up and do your job. It is so infuriating to hear people whinge about getting the thing that they wanted.
Yeah, and I'm seeing a lot of this. This is why I thought this would be a good one to start the podcast in, because like I said, this is sort of happening across so many different sectors. Like, yes, in the government, because there's a lot more scrutiny at the moment, because people are honestly doing it tough. If I see one more reel about people doing their groceries and saying like, this is outrageous. And then this is also spawning a whole lot of parody videos. And I'm seeing this on socials. Like, Gen Z, for example, are talking about the cost of living crisis whilst they're sort of also wiping white powder under their nose, for example. And it's hitting everyone in different ways, right? Yeah. And what you're seeing is a lot of, and the reason I bring up the Gen Zs is the ones particularly enamored with socialism, right? The ones who are talking about eat the rich, and that's an imported policy from bloody AOC, right? And this seems to be what happens. Something happens over in the US, and we import it, and then it becomes our problem. It first happened with Black Lives Matter, and now it's everything. The Trump hate in America. Now everyone hates Trump here. It's freaking tedious to me. But what you're seeing is a lot of these people who they're trying to hold two things at once. Simultaneously, the world is imploding, climate change and cost of living crisis, but I'm not going to stop taking the ketamine and the coke every weekend. And also, I should be able to sleep with whoever I want and make millions of dollars on OnlyFans because fuck the patriarchy. Like, it's hilarious.
Okay, so there's a great comedian. I've been binge watching a bit of comedy recently in preparation for my grand debut. I'm not copying anyone. I'm watching technique, not stealing jokes. But there was one comedian made a great observation. He was kind of dark. All of his comedy was kind of dark, a little bit George Carlin-esque. So George Carlin was kind of famous for being hilarious because he was so savagely observant, because he just didn't give a flying anything about anything. And what he said in an interview about his comedy was that he had detached from the outcome. And once you no longer care about the outcome, you can just see with such clarity. Anyway, this comedian was kind of in the same vein. And he made this, the thing that he said that really cracked me up was he'd been pretty dark for a while. And then he finally said, but I talk a big game, but I know that deep down inside, I do still care. And I do still think that there's hope. No matter how hard I try not to have hope, I do have hope. And I know that I have hope because I still do the recycling. And he riffed for a while on this observation of like, that you're putting effort in to doing something about the world. Like, I know that I don't really believe what I say I believe, and because I do the recycling. And the reverse is also true. Mike Cannon-Brookes to sit there and say, oh, hey, no, I do believe in the climate emergency. And you know that I believe in it because I buy offsets for the carbon emissions from the jet. Right? Well, no. If you actually believed that climate change was an existential threat that was going to end civilization as we know it, you wouldn't buy the jet, and then you would spend all the money that you were going to spend on the jet on carbon offsets and things to try and avoid this existential crisis. Right? Don't tell me that you're fiddling around the edges and buying carbon offsets and you believe that it's really an existential crisis. No, you don't. You don't believe the world is ending if you're still doing the recycling, and you don't believe the world is ending if all you're doing is offsetting the problem.
Yeah. I want to share this next article. This is from The Guardian, and this is talking about pressures mounting on wells, right? And I think this is someone in the Labor Party's leaked this. This is internal. This sounds to me like someone's vying for her job. Can neither confirm or deny, but that's what this feels like to me. So Sorry, it's the Australian Financial Review. So she also spent almost $8,000 going down to the footy with her family. So it's getting pretty outrageous. So the Australian Financial Review can disclose that Wells billed taxpayers $765 for a chauffeur-driven car on the day she attended the Magic Millions race on Gold Coast. So someone's gutting for her, because that story popped up about 2 months ago, didn't it? And then, sorry.
I was just going to say, you've got to always be aware of the motives behind a lot of these things. If there wasn't someone who wanted her job, probably not the opposition, someone in her own party that wants to be promoted to the front bench, then this stuff wouldn't be hitting the news at all.
This is pretty salacious. So she's also faced increasing criticism over her domestic and overseas travel spending, including $100,000 for flights to New York, and also $3,681 for a work trip to Adelaide. That included attending a friend's birthday party. She billed the taxpayers $1,389 for her husband and 3 kids to go to Thredbo, plus $1,800 for her husband to attend the Formula One Grand Prix, $4,000 on flights for her husband to join at 3 cricket matches, and $9,000 to attend 3 AFL Grand Finals. This is all starting to get a little bit outrageous, especially when you see the perks that they get. Now, most people get to go to a grand final once in their life, if they're lucky. Firstly, if their team makes it. And secondly, if they happen to get tickets. And so when you're saying this person gets, front row access to all of the best sporting gigs, it's all on the taxpayer dime, whether or not it falls between the rules, it doesn't pass the pub test. People hate this shit, Yeah. And so, especially with this all hitting the news and Albo coming out and defending her, it's like, I hate saying this word, but it seems very tone deaf to me.
Look, it is, but again, will there be consequences? When I say we, the broad electorate, the Australian people, have allowed so much graft and so much corruption for so long, and I'm not one who wants to just throw my hands up in the air and go, oh well, what can you do? That's not how I'm wired. But at the same time, we've let so much slip by already. How do we justify being outraged about it this one? I mean, we're talking hundreds of dollars and thousands of dollars, and maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars. We've got hundreds of millions of dollars being wasted on a Monday, like on any given day of the week.
Yeah. I think, I know we've said this before, but it needs to get to a point where it's so outrageous that people just go, all right, enough. And I just don't think we are there yet. And for you and I and those following along, this feels like, oh my God, what do you mean? It'll be something stupid.
You're going to have to get worse.
It'll be something stupid that really triggers people. Especially now, I was researching this reel and I was talking about the Australian music industry, and everyone keeps talking about cost of living. We keep hearing that on repeat, and yet just on the weekend, the Lady Gaga concert was like 3 nights or 2 nights sold out at Marvel Stadium. Tickets from like $300-$400. Prior to that, it was Oasis. Like, people have money for certain things.
Yeah.
AC/DC, Metallica, there's been a lot of big bands coming to Melbourne, and this is just the music stuff, right? So people still seem to have money,
Okay, so can I come back, and I don't want to do it, and I told you so, because you never told me I was wrong. I'm not doing it like an I told you so against you, but I want to go back to something that regular viewers will have heard me talk about before, and I apologize, but this is such an important learning moment. In periods of high inflation and even hyperinflation, money is easy to come by. This is one of the things that people don't understand. The present value of money declines so fast that people want to spend it sooner rather than later. People stop saving towards the future. Consumption actually can increase, and this accelerates the run, right? It accelerates the downhill run. But people are sitting there going, there is absolutely no point me putting aside money, because by the time I've saved up enough of a lump sum to do the thing that I would really like to do, the price will have gone out of reach. It's like people trying to save for a house right now. That reality of every year you've saved up more, and yet it feels like the target's even further out of reach. When you've got high inflation, and when we're not at high inflation yet, but when you've got high inflation, that's the reality across the entire economy. And a huge proportion of people just check out. And what they will seek to do is to actually empty their bank account. It becomes very hedonistic, very consumptive, very what can I get now? The present value of money declines. And this is where people who are set up intelligently. Usually you've got to be in business. Being an employee sucks under these circumstances. But if you're in a business, you can actually do reasonably well. You're never going to get ahead in the sense of you're not going to become a squillionaire because the money is inflating away. It's losing value too fast for that to happen. But you can make money. You can have very high cash flow during periods of escalating inflation. And I would argue we're at kind of the base of the curve for one of those. And so you're absolutely right. People do have money. They are buying, tickets to concerts. So, plenty of people are still eating out, not nearly as many as before. People are still traveling. All of that's still happening. And in actual fact, as more people clock out of trying to save for houses, save for cars, just buying things on debt and just spending all of their money on immediate consumption because the present value is declining so fast, money, cash is actually going to be relatively easy to come by. It just won't have any value, and it's going to be very difficult to build any sort of a nest egg.
I think there's definitely a case of I'm seeing it in like the beauty industry as well, but a piece of like a reckless abandon. Oh, nothing matters anyway. Like I may as well live for now, and that sort of ties into what you were saying. But this sort of irresponsible spending is also what we're seeing mirrored in the government. And so it's sort of like, I guess people don't care. Something we've talked about before is the debt, the state debt, the federal debt, the debt of America. And when these numbers get so big, we've talked about this before, but Victoria alone is paying almost $29 million a day just in interest per day. $29 million. Most people wouldn't earn that in a lifetime, let alone spend it in a day. And, the problem is when those numbers get so big, they're sort of like a bit more esoteric. You can't think, what's $6 billion? I don't know what that means. What does $160 billion look like? So when we talk about the state debt, and people sort of go, I can't do anything about it. I can't fix that. And so when Jacinda Allen or, Albanese come out and announce their new little spending spree, like, oh, we're going to build the suburban rail loop, even though it's completely unviable, there's no money for it. And we're going to give you free TAFE or free childcare, or the new thing in Victoria is free public transport for kids under 18. Free. Well, no one seems to think, where does that come from? Because the problem is endemic. Australians live on Afterpay, on Klarna, on Hum, on their credit cards, remortgaging their house. They live on the never, never. So I think
Scott,
this is a horrible thing to say. I was going to say,
you go.
I think we need to have a GFC 2007 crisis before Aussies go, to be clear, I don't wish this upon anyone, but until some houses get foreclosed and assets get taken away, like your car gets towed away and you lose your house. Until people hurt, I don't think the lesson gets learnt.
It has to be so much worse than the GFC, though. So, Scott, look, thank you. I was getting a bit dry. Thank you. I appreciate you bringing up Venezuela. Cheers, mate. Sorry to be the one to bring it up. He says, I was talking to a guy from Venezuela. He compared our current government corruption to pre-collapse government corruption over there. I have been saying this since 2015. I went to Venezuela in 2015. For anyone that doesn't know, I came back and I have been screaming it from the rooftops for 10 years. When I first started saying it, a lot of people laughed. Now I'm still saying it and there's still people laughing, but not as many. More people can see it now.
This comment here, wasn't COVID bad enough? No, not even close. So many people were completely untouched by COVID. So many people made money in COVID and saved money. I went unconditional on my first house today.
Yeah. Well done, Duncan. Congratulations, mate. And I hope it works out really well for you. And it's at least a few more months before the collapse comes. Just get through a first couple of repayments.
Yeah, look, I think the thing is, again, I talked before about the haves and the have-nots. I mean, there's people, we see this every week in our comments, people going, I don't know how to keep the lights on, I can't afford food. And then other people going, what are you talking about? It's not that bad. This is what I'm talking about, that disparity between the haves and the have-nots. And so it's really easy for people who have a lot right now, who, maybe the boomers, who are living very comfortably in their retirement, and they're looking around going, nothing's changed. Everything's the same. What are you talking about? And whereas you've got other people who can't get a foot on the property ladder, they can't get ahead. No matter how much they seem to earn, it gets absorbed back into like lifestyle creep. And this is the problem. This is what you're up against.
So can I make a comment on this, Duncan? Because there are people legitimately expecting a housing price crash. I find that unlikely. I'm not going to say it can't happen, but in Australia there are some structural reasons why that's really unlikely to happen. We're different to the US. People look at the US and say, "Oh, there's housing crashes that could happen here." Well, yes, it could. It's not impossible, but there are some structural reasons why it's much harder. So just the reason I bring this up is to say it's very unlikely that your house is going to go down substantially in its dollar value. The reasons why are because, number one, debt over here in Australia is tied to the person that takes the loan. If the house goes down in value and the house gets flogged off, you get chased for the difference, right? If the house wasn't sold for enough to cover the loan. In the US, people can just walk away from a mortgage. They can literally just leave the keys in the door, walk out the front door, and the bank cannot chase them. Even if the house is halved in value, the bank cannot chase them. And so what happens over here, because it's tied to the person, the politicians have a very strong electoral incentive to make sure the prices don't drop. That's one of the reasons why supply is so restricted. It's one of the reasons why immigration is propped up so much, because politicians do not want housing prices to drop. It would be electoral suicide. That's number one. Number two, thanks to inflation, which I believe is running approximately double the official figure. So the official figures are around 3.5% most of the time at the moment. I think real inflation is 7% or higher. And because of that, and that's closer to what the housing market's doing, by the way. And because of that, the nominal dollar value of houses is going to keep climbing. Their real value may not, because in inflation adjusted terms, maybe it hasn't gone up in value. But because the currency is losing value, it will go up on paper. So I'm not expecting a crash. For anyone that's sitting there listening to my comments from earlier, I was being facetious. I'm not actually expecting a crash in house prices. I can't predict what will happen, but I think there are some structural reasons why we're going to continue to see house prices go up. And unfortunately, housing affordability is a problem that is not going away anytime. Well, I mean, not in the foreseeable future until we see a massive sea change in our politics.
Yeah. And I don't think we will see a sea change because, again, I have to beat that drum that it's just not bad enough yet. For too many people, it's still okay.
So the beacon of hope is reform in the UK, right? So for those that don't know, Reform is a relatively young political party. It's spearheaded by Nigel Farage, who of course used to be a member of the European Parliament and then led the way for the UK to leave the EU, which is a highly controversial thing. Some people think it's been great. Some people think it's been terrible. But in any case, he is now the odds-on favourite to be the next UK Prime Minister under the Reform banner, having basically upended all of accepted political wisdom. Now they have, I believe it's now 360,000, or it might have been 260,000 members. Now the UK is larger than Australia by some margin, but that is a phenomenally large membership for any political party. For people to be getting that politically active and to start caring enough, for 260,000 people to have done that is insane. The threshold they just crossed, and this happened, it's Monday. This happened literally less than a week ago. They have just had a bunch of big money donors from the Tories. That's their Conservatives, their version of our Liberal Party here, have defected to them. They just received a £9 million donation from one of what used to be the biggest big money donors towards the Conservatives in the UK. So now all of a sudden, for the first time, they're starting to get budget and money to be able to actually make some moves, do some ad spend, that sort of stuff. So understand, they've gotten to where they've gotten with no money. And now other people are beginning to throw their weight behind them. One Nation is rising fast. They have not hit the Reform kind of just crazy growth curve. My hope was, and I posted about this today on my socials, my hope was with the defection of Barnaby Joyce, which by the way, has now been confirmed, he has moved to One Nation. I did a video about this where I said the risky play, but in my opinion, the smart play would be for him to stay in the lower house, for him to run in the seat of New England and try and win that as a lower house seat for One Nation. Because in that capacity, he can be their alternative prime minister. The prime minister has to come from the lower house, cannot be from the Senate. So in order for that to happen, he needs to win a lower house seat. If he chooses to do that, it's high risk. There's a greater chance of him missing out than what there is in the Senate. But if he does it, he becomes the figurehead. He becomes the Nigel Farage. And he can say, listen, Australia, you can have me as your prime minister. No nonsense. Barnaby Joyce, who's been telling it how it is for decades and has been proven right after all the scandals and all the nonsense and everything else. Look at me. I'm still here. I'm teamed up with Pauline Hanson, who's another person who's been calling it right for decades. We can do this. He's a former deputy prime minister, let's not forget. He knows this game. That was the smart play, in my opinion. It was the courageous play, but I think it's the smart one. Unfortunately, what they've announced today with Barnaby joining One Nation is that he will not be running in New England. He is going to take their lead Senate spot in New South Wales. That's good. It means he's almost certain to get elected, but I think it's in a way, it's a bit of a waste. I think they had an opportunity, and what it does, the risky option would have given them a greater chance of capturing that reform type of energy, of having enough Australian people go, whoa, 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 we could have a Barnaby Joyce prime ministership. Remember back when Barnaby was deputy prime minister, remember back into the, hark back into the good old days. I mean, not that he was deputy prime minister that long ago, but you could tie it back to kind of your John Howard era and hark back to some of that nostalgia and try and inflame a movement that way. Unfortunately, they haven't gone that way. And so I think we're probably condemned to at least one more term of uniparty, Albo, or who knows, Angus Taylor or someone. I don't know who'll be the leader of the Liberals at the next federal election. It won't be Susan Ley, but I don't know who it will be. But yeah, I feel like they've missed a trick there.
I think it's good that Barnaby joined One Nation, and I appreciate that One Nation is starting to gain speed, but there is, whether you guys like me saying this or not, there is a massive PR problem there. Barnaby is unliked by a lot of people, and yes, it's another person defecting, that's great, but at the end of the day, what wins over the average punter is the freebies, is the person getting up there going, oh, I'm here for the little man. And yes, Barnaby does do that. And I saw that their photo was at a cattle station or a sheep station or something. Great. Yeah. You're representing the farmers. I think that's great. I think that's wonderful. But, your inner city Labor supporter or your inner city Greens person couldn't give a rat's. Right. Yeah. And so, it's not it's great that we're taking people from the Libs, but they're already losing people. I don't know how you start to grab more of the silent majority, but I don't think Barnaby is the answer, in my opinion.
Yeah, look, I don't think there is an easy answer. But also think about Nigel Farage. He was persona non grata. Everyone hates Brexit. Everyone hates Nigel, blah, blah, blah. Now he's the next prime minister. I don't think that Barnaby has as big of a PR problem as some people like to make out. And I also think the Liberal and National parties know that he's a threat. The way they attacked him when he made it clear that he was leaving the National Party and they started to guess that he was going to join One Nation, the level of savagery and the level of personal attack tells me that they know something. They know that there is a potential danger there to them. Now, this is an interesting comment here. So the problem for reform is other parties are going to vote strategically like they've done to the AFD in Germany, plus Nigel is too normy. I'm going to split that into two things. AFD did not get an outright majority. They needed to negotiate with other parties to form a coalition to form government. That's pretty normal in many European countries. On current polling, Reform will have an outright majority. They will not have to negotiate with anyone. And I'm not talking about a small majority. If an election was held in the UK right now on the current polling, they would break records. They would make history. First time in UK history that a government has been held by that kind of a majority. Now, plus Nigel is too normy. For you, maybe. But understand, people like you and me and Carly and others that watch this, we're already multiple layers deep, so to speak. We, as far as inception goes, we're down a couple of layers already. Nigel actually has cut through with exactly the people that Carly was just talking about. The normies, the average Joes, the pub goers, the people who want the free stuff, or in the UK, because they're hurting so much from the crime crisis, the immigration issues, the cultural issues, etc. Nigel has cachet in those areas. He speaks to people and they go, yeah, that what he said. And that's what you need. So Nigel being too normy for you and me is an asset, not a liability.
I think the other thing is too, just to not overstate the point, but it's the pseudo intellectuals that you have to win over, right? These are the people, and people get annoyed when I talk about university, like, oh, fuck university. I'm like, it's easy for you to say that. I get you don't like it, and I'm not trying to get you to like it. The issue is they are running little indoctrination camps. I just went through it. I saw it firsthand. You think what you see on TikTok's the worst of it. It's far worse than that. They are utterly brainwashed. And you got to think, this has been going on for decades. There's a bunch of people out there who genuinely think like socialist policy is the best way forward. Not because they're bad people, not because they're stupid people, but because it's been sold to them in a way that it solves all the current problems. And currently we live under a capitalist system and capitalism's evil. And then you've got the cost of living and it's always Coles and Woolies price gouging. Like, you know, we create all of these demons, right? And at the core of this is you've got to firstly have someone that can reach those people before you deprogram them. You can't just make these people snap out of a trance. And you know, people underestimate this. The biggest voting blocks now are millennials and Gen Z. These are the kids who went through the indoctrination camp. Gen Z worse than millennials. You know, we got the tail end of it. You know, the whole like recycle, you know, save the world. Now Gen Z, they've been brought up on a culture of fear. These guys are voting now. So I get it. And not to insult our audience, but a lot of you guys think this doesn't matter. Why do you think I keep going on about bloody Abby? This is who they're being raised by. You guys want this to just change overnight. Oh no, they'll see the way. They'll vote Barnaby. No, they won't. They want to vote purple fingers. Right? So it's sort of like you need someone who's charismatic enough to be able to firstly get their attention, then maybe listen. That's what you need. And I like Barnaby, and I love Barnaby. I love Pauline. I don't love Barnaby, but you know what I mean? Like, great for them. They're not the people to do it. I wish they were, but they're not. Yeah.
So this is something that comes up from time to time. I'm not going to spend much time on this because most people watching will already know my response to this. Preferential voting is not a problem. Preferential voting is actually one of the least bad ways of organizing an election. So Warren, if you haven't seen my marbles videos, just go onto YouTube and Google Topher Field marbles video. Watch those, understand how it works. There is no democratic system that does not have to solve the problem of what to do when one person doesn't have a majority. Every single democratic system has to figure out, what do I do if the highest candidate option has only 30% of the vote? What do we do in that case? You can have runoffs, in which case people come back to the polls multiple times and keep choosing between a diminishing pool of people as the losers keep getting removed. Well, that's exactly what preferential voting does. It just does it on the spot. It just says, hey, who do you want number one? If that person was to get eliminated because they were the least, who would you want as number two? And if they were both eliminated, who would you want as number three? It's the runoff system. It's just all happening at once. And in fact, another name for a preferential voting system is instant runoff. That's actually the proper name, the correct name. It's an instant runoff voting system. We have to solve that problem. We have to figure out, what are we going to do when there's multiple candidates and no one's got a majority? Preferential voting is a good way of solving that problem.
I saw this comment, and weirdly, you're going to have to hear me out. I agree with it, right? I don't like Nick Fuentes. I'm not into white nationalism at all. However, I do believe we need more voices in the fray, because that will help us push people back to the center. I don't mean the center. I mean, like, get them away from the fringes. Because when you have people on the fringe who are so ridiculous and outlandish, you know, whether it's Alex Jones, Candace Owens, and then you got Nick Fuentes, and on the other side, you got Purple Pingers and, you know, what's his name? The guy that just zapped his dog, Hassan, and all those kind of guys. When they're so crazy, it kind of like, it's like border collies running out on the outside of the sheep. It starts to bring people back to a little bit more of a coalesced center. And, you know, you and I, as a free speech absolutist, having more people like that who say things that are ridiculous is actually, I think, a benefit. And that's why I'm so anti this censorship. I use an analogy to sort of explain this to people, and that is black mold grows in the dark. So if you don't like these ideas, the worst thing you can do is banish them to the darkness.
Yeah. So look, I disagree with nothing of Nick's that I've heard. I haven't heard much of his stuff because I don't follow him, I don't listen. But the clips that gets put out there on social media, Bob, I'm like, no, you're an idiot. But that's the case with a lot of people. But I agree with you in the sense that shutting these people down is not the right way. And I've talked before about Dick Smith. I had the privilege of spending a day with Dick Smith. It was a great day. He is a man who I disagree with fundamentally on many, many things. I was about to say most things. That's not true, but on many, many things. He is more aligned with you on immigration. He wants immigration shut down. He wants to see the whole big Australia thing shut down. And he's wanted that for decades. He's been consistent in wanting that. And to his credit, he puts his money where his mouth is. He argues for what he believes. He puts his money behind it. He supports causes and people that agree with what it is that he believes is what's best. And I would rather live in a country with a bunch of Dick Smiths who I disagree with but are honest and are not at all disingenuous about their beliefs. They're not saying one thing and living another. I would rather live in an Australia filled with people that I disagree with, but are active and engaged and are trying to make Australia better, than to live in a country where, yeah, there's no disagreement, but it's because everyone's apathetic. No one really cares. And they're just going along to get along and kind of following along. I just, that is so hard to rouse people out of that when you need people to get engaged and to move the needle to make a difference. I would rather have people who are wrong than people who don't care.
Yeah. And it's interesting because like preparing for this podcast, I don't think they're going to go for a got you, but I've just got things organized just in case. And I have a feeling that because it doesn't matter what you're talking about right now, it always comes back to politics, given how divided and politicized everything is. So it doesn't matter if we're talking about beauty standards. Inevitably, you'll talk about patriarchy, which then feeds into Marxism, and then it feeds into everyone's a fascist. And that's kind of where everyone's at. And it sounds hyperbolic to say that, but realistically, to be able to communicate the normie stuff that everyone wants to, you got to be able to communicate out here on these crazy fringes. And so the censorship thing is ridiculous, because how else do you deter people from bad ideas other than talking about them?
Yeah. Look, couldn't agree more, Baz. You've figured out my secret agenda here. It's just, oh goodness me.
I was going to ask this too. Is Dick Smith still alive? I didn't realize he's still around.
Yeah, he is. I spoke to him at a nuclear forum last year in Sydney. And I went up to him and he recognized me instantly. Oh, hi, Topher. How are you? Great to see you, blah, blah, blah. And I hadn't seen him in a long time. And I wasn't sure if he was going to remember the trip, because I'd heard that he's beginning to just his memories going and things like that. And so I said, hey, obviously, you remember me. It's great to see you again. Do you remember the day that we flew together? You flew me in your helicopter and so forth. And he just this really sort of sad look crossed his face. He said, Topher, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't remember much. I recognize people. I recognize places. I remember your name because it's just ingrained in there somewhere, but I couldn't tell you what I was doing a couple of weeks ago. And really sad. He's an incredibly sharp guy, and he's across so many things, and he still has great recall for a lot of facts and figures and so forth. But when it comes to kind of that personal stuff, I think that started to go for him, which is really sad.
How old is he? Like late 80s, 90s?
I would have thought 80s still. Did he fly to the North Pole? I know he circumnavigated the world twice in a helicopter. I didn't know about flying to the North Pole. That's a new one for me. I'll have to look that up.
He's 81.
81. So he's only early 80s. Yeah. Okay. Wow. But he's lived a hell of a life. He started out just repairing radios in Sydney for the taxi service. All the taxi industry, they depended on their radios. We didn't have cell phones back then. And he kept their radios going, and he got deeper into electronics, and then he branched out into Dick Smith Electronics, and that went really, really well. And then he sold the business. And the new owners trashed it. And so he bought it back off them for pennies on the dollar, built it back up again and sold it a second time. And the new owners trashed it again. That's why it's gone now. It's on your website now. And then he was a great man in terms of putting his money where his mouth is. So you may recall he had an Australian made foods company. He was selling peanut butter.
I do remember
he was selling jams. He had matches. Instead of being called redheads, they were called dickheads. Great sense of humor, great guy, put his money where his mouth was. And I worked with him. He brought me on to work with him on the marketing side of things for his Australian jams and preserves and so forth. And we were brainstorming ideas and we tried a few different things, nothing major, but we tried a few different things and nothing got traction. And he simply was facing the bitter reality that Australians talk a big game when it comes to buying Australian made and supporting Australian farmers and all that stuff. But ultimately, when we're in the supermarket, we buy on price. And this wasn't now in the current cost of living crisis. This was 2012, 13, 14 that I was working with him. Or more probably 2012, 13, right? And times were relatively good and people had money, and still they wouldn't buy the jam that was $2 more expensive per jar to get 100% Australian, certified Australian made, Australian processed. Nothing had left the shores of this country at any point. And people just wouldn't spend the money.
Yeah, I do remember that. I remember he brought out Tim Tams, and no disrespect, but they were terrible. They were not as good as the real thing. If you're going to go up against Tim Tams, an Australian institution, I mean, come on. I saw this comment and I thought this was worth talking about, and I think you make a great point. You make a really good
Yeah.
point.
This is exactly correct. Exactly correct. What we have in Australia is not capitalism. Capitalism is free markets. The easiest way to cut through all the crap and make this distinction is this. Do people make more money keeping customers happy or keeping bureaucrats happy? Right? Because if people are spending the time keeping bureaucrats happy, it is no longer capitalism. It is corporatism. It is, it's essentially Mussolini's definition of fascism. I won't go, I've talked about that. I've done that to death too many times, but it is the merger of state and corporation, where corporations are simply being used as vassals, as puppets for the state to pull on the strings. And Ranga 2308 is spot on. Young people have never experienced capitalism in Australia. It has not existed in my lifetime.
Yeah. This corporatism and this corporate cronyism, I mean, you just see that, and it's like it's hiding in plain sight. I mean, they don't even have to lie to us. I mean, was it Alan Joyce was at Anthony Albanese's wedding, right? And if that doesn't make your blood boil, I don't know what will. Given how much we have bailed out Qantas, and then knowing how much that Alan Joyce extracted out of Qantas, I mean, they ended up reining some of it back in. And then he's at the Prime Minister's wedding. Like, that's it on full display. It's a very exclusive club, and most of us aren't in it.
Yeah, and he's also good friends with a lot of the Liberal Party guys. So he's got friends right across the board. He's set. It's a little bit like your Julie Inman Grants. You know, she seems to be friendly with both sides of politics. She's got her career sorted in Australia or in the US. Although we'll see, things might be about to go a bit wrong for her. But yeah, if you can carry favor on both sides of the aisle as a bureaucrat, you've got it made.
Yeah. It's gross. And I think the other thing is too, like, how do I say this without demeaning people? I say this because I've been looking at a lot of TikTok lately to do my social commentary, and you see just how much conviction these young ones have in espousing the same ideas they've heard parroted down from other people who are just as ill-informed. And just because they're able to say it in a way that's like snappy and cute and click, and, you know, they do all the weird influency shit that I don't know what they do. And you sort of go, you know, it is that whole thing of Stalin, useful idiots. You sort of look at it and you go, you are utterly clueless. Sorry. You have no idea what you're talking about, but you say it with so much conviction that it becomes fact. And then other people look at that and they go, well, yeah. And then we've got this like self-fulfilling prophecy where we keep putting it out there, so we keep getting it back. And so we're only proving to ourselves that, yeah, that's exactly what we want. And this is exactly what we want to vote for. And so it's like that, you know, you've made this point before. People can identify the problem. We disagree on how to fix it. Everyone knows the country is stuffed. Everyone knows that things are bad. Everyone keeps pointing at different things to fix it, and very few have got an accurate handle on what's actually the problem.
But that's also why it's so important for us to do what we do, because there are voices out there trying to say everything's fucked. You need communism. They're saying that's the solution. And the problem is the first half of that sentence is correct. They're correctly diagnosing the problem and prescribing exactly the wrong solution. They're trying to give you poison in place of medicine. But if no one else is out there making the case in the other direction, then they're the only voice in the argument. You know, young people don't. And this is really to your point, which I've given you a hard time about in the past. But in the end, you're right. This is why the Abby Chatfields matter. This is why the TikTok trends matter. This is why all of that does actually matter. Not in the sense that it's going to necessarily change the world if we get involved in that, but it gives people the ability to choose from a spectrum of opinions. And the reality of humans is that very few of us actually genuinely come to an original opinion. It does happen, but that's relatively rare.
Do you know what it actually is? And this is something I have tried to make a point of countless times, and it just falls on deaf ears. I had someone the other day say this to me, and I wanted to clip it, but then they deleted the comment because they probably knew that what was coming for them. But they're like, oh, look at this, a photographer who thinks she can talk to me about the economy and politics. Stay in your lane, right?
Yeah.
And that is pretty much the attitude. Oh, what do you know about politics, young girl? Get the hell out of here. Even though that these people are now voters, and people forget this, right? And I just want to make this point. We have compulsory voting in Australia, meaning that people you don't like and people that you instantly dismiss because they're young and they're Gen Z and, you know, they're socialists, they are voting whether you like it or not. The issue is we refuse to allow them in the conversation. So what happens? They go and talk to people who will actually entertain their discussions. People like all those people that you and I talk about and go, what the hell's going on? You know why? Because they allow them to have the conversation, and it's at an entry level. They're not pointing down at them. They're not speaking down at them. They're not being elitist. And that's why I made that point around Jess Wilson a couple of weeks ago when she said the malaise. Great word. I love that word. But that's like most people don't even know what that means. And you're trying to talk to people and to recruit more people to come over to your side. Speak to them like you understand them. You know, a lot of people in politics, and I see this in our comments. And again, I'm not trying to crack at the audience. I'm just trying to explain to you guys the reason conversations like this matter is there is no way that you can have a definitive answer on something without nutting it out. Like conversations are a tennis match. We're volleying ideas. And I've tried to explain this to people before. I might come onto this podcast with Topher with my idea set. And then over the 3 hours, as we're going back and forth, both of our positions get reshaped. And so what happens is at the end, we both have a bit more of understanding and then we're sort of moved on our position. If everyone was doing that, we'd find ourselves in a much more healthy society, but we don't even allow that anymore. The left certainly don't allow it because they won't even entertain someone with different views. But even on the right, we do it too. And I see this in the comments. Oh, you don't even know. You don't even know the truth. You haven't touched on this thing. And it's like, okay, well, let's just have a conversation and try and get there. Stop trying to shame me because I don't know the thing that you know. And this is why these podcasts, 3 hours might be long, but this is why they matter.
Well, the reason why this is true, 85, is that farmers live in the real world. Farmers have to make decisions where they experience actual consequences if they get it wrong. One small technicality, not that it's not actually important, but I think it's worth mentioning. Voting is only compulsory if you registered to vote. So when you turn 18, the AEC will get in touch with you and they'll do this big sort of drive to try and get you to sign up to vote. The fact is, until you sign up, until you actually enroll, it's not compulsory for you. It's not compulsory to sign up either. But once you've signed up, essentially you're signing a contract, an agreement that you will vote, and they penalize you under that if you fail to do so. Now, there's stuff you can do about that. In any case, I've done that with local elections before. I've talked about that. But yeah, technically only if you actually sign up to vote, then it becomes compulsory.
All right. Well, shall we talk about some stuffy Americans who are completely out of touch?
Let's have some fun. What have you got first? Because I think my one's about guns. Not everyone's into guns, but I've got some great news about guns in America, unfortunately, but still great news about guns.
I read this and I actually thought this was satire until I looked it up and I went, oh, no, this person's like legit. Let me just pull up the article. So this kind of just continues on from our trend of what we're just talking about. So for those of you who don't know what NFL is or like anything about NFL, we're in good company. I also do not follow NFL closely. I only know about it from what I've watched in the movies. But NFL icon Odell Beckham Jr. sparks fury by moaning about the struggles of earning $100 million. It's tough to make it last forever. And I promise you, this is legit. This is not satire. So he is riled fans across the NFL by making the staggering claim that it's hard to live comfortably forever on a $100 million contract. The legendary wide receiver made the tone-deaf comments in an interview with Ryan Clark last month, but the clip has gained more traction in recent days. He has an estimated wealth of around $45 million from a lucrative career that has seen him win the Super Bowl with the Los Angeles Rams. He's signed a 5-year deal with the New York Giants worth up to $95 million, as well as agreeing a 5-year deal with Nike in 2017 worth around $5 million a year. There's some big numbers. But despite the millions he's earned reaching the top of his game, the man who briefly dated Kim Kardashian, because of course he did, has insisted it doesn't mean he's financially secure the rest of his life, all whilst listing flaunting as one of his expenses. So this is a verbatim quote. I always explain this to people. You give someone a 5-year, $100 million contract. It's 5 years for 60. We're getting taxed. That's $12 million a year. You have to spend, use, save, invest, flaunt, whatever, Beckham said on the podcast. I'm just being real. I'm going to go buy a car, get my mum a house. Everything costs money. If you're spending $4 million a year, that's really $40 million over 8 years, $8 million a year. And so this is him, right? This is him. That's a very expensive watch. This is him on his yacht, cruising around. Oh, Rolls Royce.
It's the roller.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. You're breaking down the numbers, and that's a 5-year span. You're getting $8 million. You can't make it last forever.
Yeah.
So He's got a collection of cars worth about $9 million. Among them is believed to be a $353,000 Rolls-Royce Dawn, a $337,000 Ferrari F12 Bertolina, and a 220,000 Lamborghini Huracan Spider. He spends over $300,000 on keeping his body in the best shape possible. And he has listed his $3.3 million Cleveland mansion for sale and his wildly excessive shoe closet that is bigger than most department stores. Anyway, whatever. Boo-hoo, cry me a fucking river. I cannot stand people like this. You spoiled fucking baby.
So firstly, thank you for the comment, Virginia. I've just tried moving the microphone across here so I don't directly into it. Hopefully that's gonna help a little bit with that. The issue here is this is a person who sounds like I can't psychoanalyze him, but it sounds like someone who is never going to be happy no matter what they have. No matter what they have, they're going to look at what they don't have. They're going to look at what the person earning $1 billion over 10 years is getting and go, oh, but I don't have that. So I haven't made it yet. I'm not there yet. That kind of insatiable appetite that just cannot ever be satisfied. There are plenty of people. I mean, I saw the comments, lots of people saying, hey, I could give me $100 million, and I'll get back to you, the things I could do with $100 million. Like, yeah, 100%. But for people like you and I, we would say the same thing about $100,000. Well, honestly, we'd probably say the same thing about $10,000, right? But for us, $100,000 would be a relatively life-changing amount of money. Now, I don't mean life-changing in the sense of put your feet up, retire, you never have to work again. I mean that $100,000 into your pocket right now would change the direction of your life in a way that is measurable over time, because you wouldn't squander it. It wouldn't just disappear and fritter away. You would do something with it that actually moved the needle going forward. What he's living is a pure consumption lifestyle. He's not taking that money and doing with it things that will move the needle for him going forward. He's doing with it things that satisfy his hedonism right now. And unfortunately, when you're satisfying your own lustful desires and the pride of life and things and stuff, there is no limit. There is no limit to how much you can consume. And therefore, he's just never going to be happy. And he will end up very quickly broke once he stops playing.
Yeah, I liked that quote. He's a victim of culture. And this is why I'm so, this is why I'm so passionate about talking about culture, because we're seeing the same thing here. It's not $100 million, but you've got young people who are spending insane amounts of money on stuff they don't need. Like, I've given you that analogy of the shower, and that's my next photography assignment. I'm going, for those who haven't heard this yet, I'll explain it very quickly.
Is that why you were inviting me to that photo shoot? You want me in the shower? Was that what that was?
I just ate, and it's sitting right there. So please don't bring it back
not
up.
anymore. You didn't.
No. So I have this thing around consumption and the cost of beauty, right? And I mean, you've heard people talk this before, but I noticed this when I first started dating G, and I went to his house and I had a shower there, and I realized he just had this one bottle of soap that did everything. It was 2-liter bottle, whatever, and it shampoo, body, all the things, right? Yeah. You go into a girl's shower, and you see a cosmetic store. You've got 2 or 3 different sets of shampoo, body washes, face washes. And I'm not a big beauty guru, by the way. I just buy the new shampoo, conditioner before the other ones run out because it was on special, and then I don't throw it out, and then I have 3 all of a sudden. But young girls now, especially, they are being sold this sort of hedonistic lifestyle and this desire to keep consuming at a rate that none of us can sustain. So I'll give you an example. It might be makeup. Let's say it's makeup. You don't just have one makeup product. You have the whole spectrum of them, but then you have 17 different brands because that one's not trending anymore. This is the new must-have. This is the new must-have. And it's so whether it's $100 million or it's, $100,000 or even $50,000, everyone's living the same lifestyle. We are living this hyper-consumption. It's not consumption, it's hyper-consumption, that you need to keep having the latest thing. That article talks about his sneaker collection. How many sneakers can you wear? And realistically, what are they worth? He's talking about Nike sneakers.
Well, there's people that collect them and then keep them in the shrink wrap. I walk past shops and they've got them on display in the plastic. And clearly the idea is that you're going to buy them and keep them in the plastic. It's like there's people that buy cars and put them into these air-conditioned, humidity-controlled little blow-up tents inside the garage with the plan of holding onto it for 10 years and selling it for a profit. It's
Yeah.
What's the point? The car is to be driven. Sneakers are to be worn.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. It's sorry, I'm just gonna ban this user. I'm just sick of the Islam comments. Like, if you're gonna add something to the conversation, you can stay. But if you're gonna like keep just blasting the chat with the same thing, piss off. It's annoying.
Yeah.
Sorry. But yeah, no, this level of crazy consumption that you don't need one pair of sneakers, you need 50, and you got to have the latest and greatest. And people get annoyed and they say it's capitalism. No,
no,
you've got
it's
agency.
consumption.
You're choosing to participate in it. You're deciding that this is what I want to do with my money. You know how hard it is to earn that money. You don't need me to lecture you that work can be tough. And so at the end of the day, whether you get a paycheck of $500, $1,000, $5,000 a week, whatever you get, what you choose to then go and tap your card at, that's on you, baby. That's on you. You can't blame influencers. You can't blame advertising. You have agency.
100%. Now, can I go back to a very important topic that we only touched on very, very briefly? And then we moved on. I think I felt a little too quickly. And that is nude photo shoots with me as the subject. Because Carly's Mac has committed suicide, everybody. Mac heard the topic at hand and noped right out of there. No, one of us.
Am I going to have to bleach my ears or my eyes? I don't know what's happening.
One of us has done a nude photo shoot in our lives, and it's not you. And it was published. It could be found. If people knew where to look, it could be found.
I don't need to know this, dude. I've never Googled you that hard.
I'm not gonna provide any further leads. The photo shoot was, let's say, tasteful, and it was for a good purpose. I will say this wasn't some vanity piece. It certainly wasn't pornography. It was an art piece, and the photo was taken carefully, but it exists. I was stark naked, but not exposed in that sense. Male photographer, very awkward photo shoot. Neither of us were comfortable. But hey, we'll see if anyone can ever dig up this photo.
Help. Help me.
Okay. The comment of the night goes to Capital G Man. Nobody needs to see Topher's activated almond. It was more of a date photo shoot, not an almond photo shoot, but you do you.
Very few things have pushed me to want to reconsume alcohol, but that might be it. That might be the one. My glass is empty and I'm feeling a little bit violated. Actually, no. You've brought up something. All right, guys.
There's some great comments, by the way. Keep them coming.
Who of you watched Wednesday's podcast and got gaslit by Topher about a very explicit video we were all hazed into watching? Talk to me. Talk to me in the comments. How many of you felt gaslit by this man? Right? And I've seen this. And we've had the discussion in the Discord. Shout out to all the Discord people and others that you are going to be sat in a chair and you are going to watch that video and you're going to do it on camera. We're going to not play the video, by the way. We're not playing that on the podcast. But we are going to make Topher watch Two Girls, One Cup because he told us it's not real.
Listen, I don't know what to say. I'll believe it when I see it. Okay, you want to tell me that it's real? Okay, fine. My entire experience of it was being shown videos of people reacting to watching it. Yeah. In my experience of it was never, ever actually seeing it. So if you want to have that in your search history and you want to find it, I will watch it. I will put myself through it. Dude. And if that makes you happy somehow, then that really reflects poorly on you, but okay. Okay.
To tell you the truth, if that were in my search history, that'd be the least of my problems. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
all I'm saying is ACO is entertained by what is in my search history.
Oh, hang on. That's the one I was looking for. Topher lives a sheltered life. I'll link it on Discord right now if needed. Hey, maybe I did, but that was genuinely my experience of it. And by the way, the reason it came up was because I mentioned Bambi and the false memory of seeing Bambi's mum get shot, which that's real. The Bambi thing, you never see the mum get shot. And in fact, it's not explicitly said that she was shot. It's implied. That's true. And that was in context there. And then I went, oh, there was this other thing. And because that was genuinely my experience of it. So, you know what? I'll bring the popcorn. I'll bring the popcorn. All right, we can share a nice big bag of golden buttery popcorn while we watch Two Girls, One Cup as a bonding experience together.
What you need is some chocolate mousse because that'll be on brand. But anyway, now that we've completely like descended into just utter debauchery and friggin', I don't even know how to recover. I'm out. I'm out. I got nothing. This is disgusting. Anyway, on that lovely note. Okay, so I'm just watching all the comments come in. Everyone's just like, wait, what?
Hilarious.
Okay, we have talked about that. And this, okay, another one, since we're on this like really disgusting
You
topic.
had a short circuit, Carly. Wires just got connected in ways that they're not supposed to be.
Yeah, I've been dropped on my head too many times. All right. Okay. For the record, and I have the definitive proof right here, this was brought to my attention also by One Topher Field. So he's a step in front of me. Ladies and gentlemen, friend of the show, not Abby. Oh my God, she's on my brain. What's her name? Bonnie Blue.
Bonnie Blue.
Has been arrested in Indonesia. Now, I don't know if you guys remember the old Chappelle Corby trial and things like that. Of all the places you don't want to get arrested for things like prostitution and pornography, I'd say Indonesia is probably one of them, given it's a Muslim country.
Yeah. It's amazing, though, how many people go to Bali and don't actually comprehend that Bali is a part of Indonesia. Indonesia is an extremely conservative Muslim country. They execute people for things that over here we go, right? So yeah, don't fuck around over there. That's not the place to do it.
Yeah, I find it like kind of ridiculous that she was that silly. And I think this is what happens with a lot of celebrities or influencers or public figures is they eventually get so emboldened. And I don't know if it's a level of narcissism or it's just like this overconfidence. They get sort of drunk on their own Kool-Aid and they overplay their hand. And this one, to me, to any sane, rational person, like I'm not cheering for Bonnie in any way, shape, or form, but that just like seems like blanket stupidity. Like, are you dumb?
Well,
like, she already has money. She's already making money. Why the outrageous stunt where you're likely to have something like this happen?
Okay, because she got onto this conveyor belt where escalation is the only option. You know, she could turn around now and go, oh, I banged 100 men in 12 hours. Well, who cares? You already did 1,000, right? We don't care anymore. There's got to be the escalation. There's got to be risk. There's got to be danger. There's got to be the possibility of arrest, physical harm. This is the treadmill that she's got herself on now.
Yeah.
That's her entire brand. And the minute she chooses to step off that treadmill, she disappears instantly into irrelevance, or worse for her, because this is what happens with strippers and prostitutes and even people who are always gold diggers, etc. Is they've always got to watch over their shoulder for someone younger, prettier, more of a risk taker, someone who's willing to do the thing that they drew the line on. They used to be the edgiest. They used to be the one that got all the attention, and they didn't have to do everything because they were just willing to do that one more thing than the person before. Now in the world of OnlyFans and social media, you're competing on a worldwide stage, and you've got to be more outrageous than literally the next most outrageous human being. How do you maintain that?
She hadn't been in the news cycle for ages. And I mean, I actually make this point in I did a part 2 to my reel from last week. And because I was trying to sort of, like I said, you get 3 minutes. I'm trying to steer people into a conversation that we need to have. If we want to know why people these days are where we're at, we need to have a look at the culture that we've been surrounded by and who's making these decisions and who's upholding these people. And the fact that we know who Bonnie Blue is pretty outrageous in itself. She broke the cultural zeitgeist. She made her way in there. And I mean, as a marketer or as someone that looks at it from an advertising perspective, I'd say it's fairly brilliant. I don't like saying that, but she did it. She was able to do it. Exactly. Like, don't hate the player, hate the game kind of thing. But the only reason a Bonnie Blue exists, and we've had this argument before, is because we've gone so far down this fourth wave feminism. She is the ultimate final boss of fourth wave feminism. And now what you see is play stupid games, win stupid prizes. I mean, I hope she's okay. Like, I don't want to see anyone thrown into an Indonesian prison for like another Chappelle Corby, because I think that could be a truly terrifying result for her, given what she.
I also don't want her to get the sympathy. I don't want her to have the sympathy vote.
No, that as well. I mean, this is like I feel like when it comes to pop culture and culture in general, we are in that final circle of the drain. Like we're literally like I said this last week. And I'm trying not to say the same thing, but we're circling the drain. We're almost about to go down. And maybe that's the best thing. I don't know.
Well, the thing is, people have said that about the economy, and I've been guilty of saying that about the economy over literally decades. Oh, it can't get, like, the debt can't get any bigger. Like, we've got to be right on the edge of the collapse. And then it manages to lumber its way along and not quite collapse and find another, couple of $1 billion worth of debt, and on it goes. When the US debt hit $1 trillion for the first time, people were saying, well, this is unsustainable. It can't be coming on. What is it now? 30 something trillion, I think it is. It is amazing. Just when you think it can't get any worse, someone figures out how. I don't think there's anything about our current state that dictates that we're about to have some kind of a go down the drain experience. I think we can continue to spiral for a lot longer. We are still nowhere near Venezuela, and even in Venezuela, yes, that's right, everybody. Here we go.
I've got nothing left.
Even in Venezuela, there were people defending the status quo. There were people defending the government. Yes, the elections are rigged, but having said that, there are a lot of people that do support the socialist government there, despite everything that's happened. There's nothing inherent about our situation that requires there to be an awakening. It can literally just get worse. And that's why I do what I do, is to actually try and engineer that awakening, because it's not automatic that it will happen.
Yeah. Oh, Lord, give me strength.
Well, Riot 9 has apparently posted the video in question into Discord. So there you go, Carly. You don't even need it in your search history. You can just load it up for Wednesday's show.
The fact that you got that so quickly.
Okay. Moving on.
Right.
Should we talk about guns? Because I want to talk about guns.
Oh, I had the Elon Musk thing. Is that different to this?
All right. Yeah. So let's do Elon Musk, because that'll lead in, and then let's talk guns in the US. Second Amendment. There's some big news on that front.
Okay, so this is the story I thought you meant. Hopefully it's the one you wanted.
Yeah. Okay, so let's start here. So Musk has been given a fine by the European Union, 120 million euros, which works out to be about 210 million Australian dollars. For three things. They fined him for three things. So you cast your mind back before the last US presidential election. Musk and Trump had not yet teamed up. And the first thing they kind of did publicly together was when Musk interviewed Trump on an X Spaces sort of interview. And he actually had to stress test the platform and get the platform ready, because it hadn't done anything on this scale before. Do you kind of remember that?
Yeah. That was ages ago.
All right.
Oh,
so the EU.
Stop it. Thanks, babe. G-Man, everyone.
So
hey, G, come here. Hang on 2 seconds. He does exist, guys. Just so you know. Anyone who thinks he's a figment of my imagination.
I think that was just a well-engineered bit of AI. So the European Union sent Elon Musk a threatening letter. I have a copy on my computer. I show it in a video that'll be coming out in about 2 days. Basically saying, don't forget you have a responsibility to make sure that no misinformation gets spread online. And by the way, we're already investigating you, and your behavior in this regard will influence our investigations into your other matters. So literally standover tactics, literally making threats. We can make your life hard if you step out of line and platform Donald J. Trump, presidential candidate, former US president. Elon Musk said jog on and went and did his thing anyway, which is one of the reasons why I love the guy. So the EU have had it out for him ever since. And finally, so they've got a thing called the Digital Services Act in the EU that empowers their version of the e-Karen, their version of the e-Safety Commission. And they've fined Elon Musk 120 million euros for three things. First was for fraud. He apparently is fraudulent in offering the blue checkmark verified program. Their argument is that because it's just money, people are just paying, and the company doesn't actually do anything to verify that they are the person they say they are, that is therefore fraud. People with a blue check are purported to have been verified, had their identity verified. What it does in practice is it ensures that they can be unmasked if necessary. If someone with a blue checkmark account were to do something genuinely illegal, well, there's a payment record there that they can use as a way of actually finding out who the person is. But anyway, so the EU have decided that that's not good enough, and that's fraud. I think it was 35 million euros of the fine. Might have been 45. No, 30. I think it was 35 million euros worth of fine just for that. The problem they've got is that Meta offers the exact same thing, money for a verification and a tick on Facebook and on Instagram. So they're playing favorites here, suing one and charging one tens of millions of dollars and not the other. The other two reasons why they increased the fine up to 120 million euros was because Elon Musk is not sharing proprietary data from X. So the EU insists that X has to hand over all their data about all the advertisers on the platform, who's running what ads, how much they're paying, blah, blah, blah. This is part of what they claim to be a anti-fraud, anti-misinformation type measure. But that's proprietary information. That's information on how his business runs on the inside. And he's under no obligation to have to let any of that out. So they've slapped him with this 120 million euro fine, and it's hilarious. He's basically told them to jog on, and he's basically said the EU shouldn't exist, and I agree, and I actually think it might have less than 5 years to run, but we'll see. But what's been really interesting is the response from the American government. Now, there's an X account I recommend people look up. Her name is Sarah Rogers. She's the Undersecretary for Diplomacy, I think it is. She was traveling in the EU when Elon Musk made his tweet about how the EU needs to be abolished. And a member of the European Parliament, whose name escapes me, replied and said, we have free speech. Oh, we don't have censorship, said, we don't have censorship in the EU. She was in the EU at the time, and she made a video where she said, well, I'm traveling on a diplomatic passport, which means she can't be sued. She can't be prosecuted. So I'm going to say a bunch of the things that people have gone to prison or been prosecuted for saying in the EU, just to prove to you that there is censorship in the EU. And she goes ahead and she says a bunch of things. And this whole tit for tat has taken off. I've done a video on it that'll come out later this week. It's absolutely hilarious. You've got Ursula von der Leyen, the president of, that's the video there. Do you want to play it?
Yeah, sure. Hang on.
I got off my European train and checked into my European hotel and noticed that a member of European Parliament called Helmut Brandstetter tweeted, quote, "There's no censorship in Europe. Everyone has to follow our rules." Well, I'm traveling here on a diplomatic passport, so I thought I'd take this opportunity to say a few things that ordinary Europeans can't by revisiting some remarks for which people in Europe and also the UK have been investigated or arrested or jailed by their governments over the past few years. So, as I tweeted a few moments ago, a German woman notoriously received a harsher jail sentence than a convicted rapist after the woman called the rapist, quote, "a disgraceful pig." This was after he participated, along with several other disgraceful pigs, in the gang rape of a 15-year-old girl in a public
Right,
park.
can you pause there?
Similarly, a British woman was dragged.
She's completely straight-faced, but you notice what she did there. All right, this person was imprisoned for calling the rapist a disgraceful pig, and then she went straight in and said this was after he participated along with other disgraceful pigs, etc. Now keep playing.
Yeah, she said the thing,
dragged out of her bath by 11 police officers after she referred in a private text message to a man who allegedly violently assaulted her as, quote, "a faggot." And victims of violent crime aren't the only people who lack free speech rights in Europe. In Sweden, an activist called Rasmus Paludan was jailed after he burned a Quran and referred to Islam as gay Islam. Finally, in Germany, a man faced a criminal investigation for referring to Green Party leader Ricarda Lang as, quote, "fat." There are many more. I could go on, but it's important to note that the European censorship bureaucracy often postures as populist, fighting against big tech. Yet none of the people I listed as a large tech company. These are ordinary Europeans and one Brit who were punished by their governments for saying what they thought was true, or just what they felt like saying. In a free society, that shouldn't happen. So which is it, Mr. Brandstetter? Is there no censorship in Europe, or do we all have to follow
the rules? All right, so that's what she did. And now understand, she's an undersecretary for, I think it's for diplomacy in the Department of State. So she answers to Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State. She is not doing that rogue. Understand, she didn't get into her hotel room and go, I just thought of a great piece of TikTok content. I'll quickly do a video before I head off to meet, the head of state of some country or her counterpart in the EU. She knows what she is doing, and the Department of State knows what she is doing. That is a move. That is not a rogue thing.
That was done under her as official account. So yeah.
Correct. It's on her official account, and yes, she might have done it in her private capacity, but it's published on her official account, and her boss knew. The American government wants a fight with the EU on this issue, and I say that with confidence. They are right now pushing through so there was an act in one American state, I don't recall which, called Wyoming. Sorry, not called Wyoming, called the Granite Act. Now, what this did at a state level was it essentially meant, what the state level doesn't matter. What the federal House, the US House of Representatives, are picking up the Granite Act, and they are rehashing it for the federal level, and they are bringing it forward with the view to implementing it in the US. Now, the Granite Act explicitly will absolve any American-owned tech companies from any punitive measures imposed by any foreign government. So Elon Musk, at a corporate level with his Delaware registered company, will be immune from anything the ECARN does, anything the EU does, anything that Ofcom in the UK do. Now, they can still target the local entities. So, for example, Meta, they're registered in Delaware because it's a tax haven within the US, but they have a subsidiary for the EU registered in Ireland. That's where that's the sort of the EU tax haven, so to speak. So the EU might try and target the island entity. And to answer that, what this legislation does is it actually explicitly says that anyone that is fined by a foreign entity can counter-sue the foreign entity, get damages, and the US government will help them to extract those damages out of any assets held by that entity within America.
Yeah.
Now, the reason why this matters is because pretty much every foreign government, including every EU government, has American bank accounts that are holding huge amounts of American money. It's how they prop up their own economies. It's how they prop up the euro. So essentially what Trump is doing is saying, once they pass this act, yeah, you can levy a fine against Musk or against Meta or against anybody, but they will countersue you. They will win, and we will simply start confiscating the assets that you have on American soil. And good luck having any of your government officials travel to America. We're willing to burn everything to the ground over free speech.
Yeah.
Now, I've said before, Trump is not a free speech absolutist. Trump is willing to use every form of leverage to protect the First Amendment rights of Americans. And that means Trump has engaged in tariff diplomacy. I've talked extensively about that before. Some people tried to laugh at me and say, "Oh, he hasn't. He's reduced the tariffs. Yeah, down to 10%. No one's got tariff free yet because no one's got free speech yet. So you don't get free speech unless tariff free access to the US market unless you've got free speech for your people." Now he's ratcheting it up even further, and he's actually explicitly saying, "Hey, we're willing to essentially go to war over this. We will create a situation where you will be suing us in the international court. We will be suing you. We will be confiscating your assets here in the US. We are willing to go that far." So this is escalating beautifully, in my opinion. And I want to reflect on one last thing before I shut up for a little while, because I've been talking for ages. Hate on Trump all you want. And I've criticized his flaws. He's got lots of them. I've criticized his flaws many times. But stop and reflect for a moment on how different the world would be if Kamala Harris had been president.
Mm-hmm. That's terrifying, actually, when you say that. That's truly terrifying.
A new dark age would have already begun. Censorship would already be in place worldwide. There would be no exceptions. There would be no platforms where you're safe. Nothing. The world would be a radically different place.
Yeah, it's pretty dystopian to think about that. But I think you're seeing glimmers of light come through, but still so many things are upside down. Like even now, was it Sel Grover, that's going up against Roxy Tickle.
Yeah.
Looking at that, 5 years that's been going on, and it's still no closer to the truth. And, I'm going to go all over the place, but, you got that. You've got the woman who was fined $65,000 or something for stating that someone was a biological man. You've got what's it called? The Diddy documentary coming out, right? So this shit, this debauchery, this hedonistic, nihilistic lifestyle has been there brewing away for so long. That's at the core of it is this cultural rot that's allowing us to get away with this. And I think when it comes to censorship and all this sort of stuff, and trying to push people down this woke stuff and get them to want to like cheer for their own demise by embracing socialism and Marxism, I don't think it's going to be undone very quickly. You know, we keep saying like, oh, well, if Trump does this and then this does this, aha, checkmate. It's not going to be checkmate. I think we've got at least like a good 5, 6, 7 years ahead just to sort of like cut the head off this snake. Then we can start the healing process. We've still got people arguing whether or not you can give children hormone blockers. Like that got banned and then it got unbanned and now it's being banned again. Or, you know, I like it's hard not to get frustrated, but I hear things like this about the EU, and imagine like if we couldn't even talk about this stuff, this podcast would be dead.
Oh.
We
No,
wouldn't be able to
yeah,
have
no, forget about that. I mean, that satire video we played earlier about podcasting equipment being restricted, that would be real. That would be a thing, not the equipment, but the podcasts themselves. So we're in a really interesting moment in time, because what's happening is there's a there's a two-way battle being drawn with a set of reinforcements rising quickly. The two-way battle is Trump and, let's be honest, Musk on one side, the EU, the UK, Canada, Australia, the rest of the English-speaking world on the other side.
Yeah.
And the rest of the world is pro-censorship. Now, the people aren't, to be clear, but the governments are. Literally, the US and Donald Trump is pretty much the only staunch defender of freedom of speech in the English-speaking world. There are some Eastern European countries that are great and other countries that are great, but in the English-speaking world, it's pretty much the US and that's it. But what's happening is the people of countries all over the world, markedly in Europe, but also Australia, the UK rising, the people are rising. And what that's done is that's put a stopwatch on the tyrants. They thought the future was theirs. They thought they had all the time in the world. COVID was going to let them bring a certain amount in, and then climate change and carbon credits was going to let them bring more, and then misinformation and protect the children, they were going to be able to bring more. They thought the world was only going in one direction, and that was theirs. The problem is they awakened the sleeping giant, and yes, it's all happening too slowly. The sleeping giant is still pretty groggy and not very awake yet, but you look at the UK and the polling with Reform, look at Germany and the AFD, look at France and Le Pen, look at Italy, look at Argentina's an outlier in South America, but nevertheless, look at Argentina, look at Australia and One Nation. There is a rising that is happening right now. Far too slow, like I said, but it's happening.
My friend, and I'm quite frankly really disgusted by it.
Well, if you were Frank, that would explain a lot of things, but I think G would probably have a bit of a word to say about that. So what that's done is it's put a stopwatch on the tyrants. And instead of them having an infinite time horizon, which they thought they had, suddenly they don't. Then it got worse and Trump got reelected. So now they have a time horizon and an active adversary working against them. And I think they're starting to panic.
For those who missed what I was talking about, I was referring to Nayab Bukele because Topher dismisses him. This is someone who is making such vast headway very quickly. You know, he put up a comment before where he's talking about it was the rankings of health industries in each country, and El Salvador currently rates 55. And he's like, don't worry, we're onto it. We'll be first. And what I love in Nayab and what I've recognized in him, and that's a drinking game, guys, get after it, is that he's competitive. And this is actually what I think is the greatest sort of virtue I want in my politicians. I want competitiveness. We're going to be the best. We're going to be better. Trump's competitive. And I think that's why I like Trump. Not necessarily his policies or his bombastic personality, all that sort of stuff, whatever. I love that he's like, we're the best. We're the greatest. We've always been the greatest. We're always the best. You know, you've never seen anything like it. I like that. I want my country to be competitive. I want us to be on the global stage going, no, we're better. Watch us. Our military is better. Our people are better. We're more intelligent. Our literacy rates are higher. Our healthcare is the best. We don't have that in Australia. If anything, I mean, you guys have heard me say this a billion times. Australians are so okay with mediocrity, so chill about it. As a matter of fact, they embrace it because being mediocre means you don't actually have to try. And I think that of all the countries, Australia has that worse than everyone else. I can't speak for the Canadians. I don't really know a lot, but I think in Britain have already been through a really tough time in the 60s and 70s. They've still got it in their blood. Aussies, I don't know, man.
Yeah. Now, we're an hour and 43 minutes in. I don't want to have a super long one tonight, but I want to get to guns. Guns in the US.
All right. Do you have a story for me to pull up?
Only sort of. So the one big beautiful bill included the abolition of the $200 tax stamp for firearms that are restricted under the US NFA. Is that technical enough for you? Let me paint the picture because this is more of a words thing. So Trump's one big beautiful bill, the big spending bill that he put through that increased the debt and did a whole bunch of horrible stuff. In it, one of the things that it did was it removed the $200 tax fee that you get charged under America's National Firearms Act if you want to have a silencer, a short barrel shotgun, short barreled rifle, fully automatic weapon, etc. These restricted categories. So the US Second Amendment says that the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. And then in 1934, Teddy Roosevelt infringed on the right of the people to keep and bear arms, specifically restricting these specific types of weapons. He did it because of the violent crime wave that came on the back of the Prohibition. So gangsters are running around with Tommy guns. We have to restrict machine guns. We have to restrict shortened shotguns, all the rest of it. Okay, so he passes it. It got challenged. Now, he was very, very clever. He knew that if he simply banned those weapons, it would get struck down because it would be a violation of the Constitution. So what he did was he made it a revenue bill that was administered by the tax office, and it was about the tax that people had to pay. If you wanted to own one, you can own one. You just have to pay the $200 tax stamp. And by the way, in order to have the payment for the tax stamp, you have to tell us who you are, exactly what you have, where you're going to keep it, and a whole bunch of essentially gun registration, right? But it was done as a tax bill, and that was done on purpose. In 1937, it got challenged by a gun dealer up in Illinois who said, hey, I want to deal in these weapons and I don't think I should have to pay this tax. The Federal Circuit Court in Illinois agreed with him that the National Firearms Act was unconstitutional. The federal government took it to the Supreme Court, which was stacked at the time with loyalists to Roosevelt because he'd not long been president. And they agreed 8-0 that it was constitutional, not because it didn't violate the Second Amendment, but because it fell under the congressional taxing powers, because it was a tax act. And the regulatory aspect was simply incidental. It was a necessary evil in order for it to accomplish its taxing purposes. In other words, the Supreme Court gave Roosevelt exactly what he'd asked for in the first place, which was allow me to infringe on people's rights, call it a tax, and be done with it. So that was the status quo. There's some other stuff in there over the years, but that was pretty much the status quo. Now, what that means is that the only ruling, sorry, now let me say it another way. There has never been a ruling from the Supreme Court that found the National Firearms Act to be constitutional in the absence of the tax. The only ruling has been in the presence of the tax, and specifically because of the tax. Trump has removed that tax. That tax is gone on short-barreled rifles, short-barreled shotguns, and on suppressors.
Yeah.
So now already multiple lawsuits have been launched in the US, including one, by the way, that is sponsored by 15, I don't have enough fingers, states. So the states themselves are supporting lawsuits now wanting to ask the Supreme Court the question, now that there's no tax on these, is the NFA and the requirement to register, etc., is that a violation of our rights under the Second Amendment? Because we think it is. And I think those court cases are very, very likely to succeed after some argy-bargy and backwards and forwards and eventually getting to the Supreme Court sometime next year or maybe 2027. So I think what we're about to see is the most significant reduction in gun control in the US and the most significant liberation of gun ownership in the US literally since the Second Amendment was written. It's the first time there's been a major wind back in gun ownership laws in the US. And I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, okay. I haven't seen this story, so I'll take your word for it.
Yeah.
I was looking at the chat and people are asking what each other's favorite guns are. I'm like, do Australians still remember guns? You know, they're not something we've had for a long time.
I played with a Steyr when I was in the Army Reserve. I loved it. If I lived in America, I would have a Steyr AUG A1 as my little home defense pew pew. I'd love it. It'd be great.
No, I want a Smith & Wesson revolver. That was fun.
Yeah, old school. You want the old school? No, give me a semi-automatic sidearm and an Oz Steyr or a Steyr AUG A1 as my primary. Thank you very much. I'll be happy with that.
Yeah, I think we need to have as part of the Oddcast team when we go to America, like a gun day. I think it's part of our training as podcasters.
100%. Well, I've had a few people reach out to me. A guy in Texas wants to take us out hunting, and a couple of other people reach out. So hopefully we can have a good time.
I saw before someone in the chat. I normally watch Tim Pool and I haven't watched him for a week. I just needed a break. But apparently Ozpill was on Tim Pool today. Is that correct? Can someone confirm or
was he?
deny?
I have no idea.
People like, we should get the Oddcast on Tim Pool. We're working on it.
Yeah, 100%.
That's the plan.
Yep.
We are in discussions.
Okay, so can I give a bit of updates on stuff? Firstly, I am confirmed for speaking in Tokyo. I'll be showing Battleground Melbourne live in Tokyo on the 28th of December. The venue to be confirmed, it'll be in the evening of the 28th of December, somewhere in the Shibuya district. For fans that are in Japan, spread the word to anyone that you know that's in Japan. And if you're one of the fans that has reached out to me recently about that, then yes, it's on. And I'll be finding everyone's comments who commented about it on my video, and I'll be updating you guys. So that is happening 28th of December, showing a Battleground Melbourne and a Q&A with me afterwards. It will have Japanese subtitles, and the Q&A will be translated into Japanese. But yeah, so I'll be there. That'll be awesome. Then I'm not going to say confirmed, because officially I haven't yet had an email saying, hey, we officially invite you to ... right? But it is all but confirmed that they have offered me a speaking spot on the main stage at a thing called the Gulch Festival, which is in San Diego, California, in early June of next year. So that'll be me speaking. And I'm very confident that we are going to get Battleground Melbourne live onto stage at Freedom Fest on July 8th or 9th next year. Now, Freedom Fest is the biggest libertarian festival in the world. It's basically CPAC is the conservative one. Freedom Fest is the libertarian type one, and it's not as big, but it's still massive. By Australian standards, we've got nothing even close. So yeah, looking at multiple different bookings starting to line up for next year. And then Carly, of course, I'll need Carly in the US for Battleground Melbourne Live. So we're going to get her over there. And hopefully we're going to book a bunch of other stuff. Tim Pool would be great, but also working on a bunch of other podcasts for us to do while we're over there.
Yeah, we'll likely be with Dave Rubin at some point as well.
Hopefully, yep. I don't want to count my chickens before they've hatched or presume on his good hospitality, but yes, that's one of the things we're going to work on, as well as many, many others. So also, people are reminding me in the comments that they want to know about the 27th Karen rules, which I did say we would talk about. Okay, so in 2 days' time, the under 16 social media ban comes in. Most of us are not going to notice it. Honestly, I know there's been a lot of fear mongering. There's been a lot of scaremongering. Most of us, it is going to affect some people. Right? Don't come at me on Wednesday saying, oh, you said it wasn't going to affect anyone. No, I'm not saying it's not going to affect anyone. Most of us are not going to be affected at all because the algorithm will automatically approve us and say, hey, this person's obviously over 16 years of age. For those that aren't automatically approved, you may need to upload some form of ID, a driver's license, that sort of thing. Let's be honest, we've all had to do that for various things in the past before. I've had to do that to rent cars in the past, particularly in America. We've all had to do that sort of thing. I'm not defending it. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's good. It's terrible. It's a very, very bad thing that they're trying to do to us, but it's also not the end of the world. If you choose, if you're one of the ones who gets challenged to upload ID and you choose to log off and not come back, I respect that. I've got no issue with you making that decision. You're probably going to find your life's actually better off, to be quite honest. So you do you. If in my case, if my account gets flagged, which it might because my kids watch YouTube under my account so that they don't get ads. So there's actually a chance that my account would get flagged. I will upload the ID. No, I'm not going to get a digital ID, but I'll upload my driver's license, prove my age, and keep using my account. Yes, of course I will. But for the vast majority of people, you're just not even going to notice. It's just going to happen seamlessly, automatically. AI will decide that you're over 16. Now, the 27th is a different kettle of fish, and there's been big fear mongering around this. People saying, oh, the 10th is just the distraction. The 27th is the dangerous one. On the 27th of December, into effect come 3 new codes of conduct that the Karen has pushed through. And people are saying that you're going to have to upload your ID just to be able to use Google search and blah, blah, blah. No, you're not. As of the 27th, they are required to increase the default level of safe search. So anyone who is not logged in to an account will have a safe search turned on automatically. So anonymous browsing for 2 girls, 1 cup, you might struggle. Okay. That might be a thing. Again, I'm not saying that I approve of this government censorship. I'm just trying to give you a straight down the line, accurate, non-hyperbolic assessment of what's actually happening. If you are logged in, everything will function as it already does. So I'm always logged in on all my devices. I've got accounts on everything because I have to. So it won't affect you or I if you're in the same boat. However, they have 6 months then, the platforms have 6 months to then do the same thing that the social media platforms are doing, which is to take reasonable steps to ensure that you're over 16 years of age. Again, they're going to do that with AI based on behavior. They're going to look at what you're searching for, what you're watching, what you're doing, how you speak. They're going to run AI over the whole lot, and it's going to come back and say this person's clearly over 16 years of age in the vast majority of cases. But yes, once again, in 6 months, when the date comes in the middle of next year, when they have to enforce the under 16s removal, then at that point, yes, some accounts may have some trouble. Again, I'm not defending it. I'm just giving you a completely no nonsense, no BS, no hype description of what's coming. That's what's coming. It's not the end of the world. You're not going to be forced to get a digital ID to stay on the internet. You will be able to use your other already existing forms of government issued ID. There will be third-party non-government providers that can also provide you with an identification verification service. But the thing is with them, you're going to have to give them your government issued ID anyway. So it kind of amounts to the same thing. So not the end of the world, not good, but not the end of the world. Please don't lose sleep over it. Please don't let it steal your joy. Get on with life because life goes on. Control what you can control and don't get too caught up in this stuff.
Yeah. Do you know what? The other day I had to get a director's ID because I just set up a new company, and yeah, it's a digital ID. Basically, there's no way around it.
Oh, yeah. So there is a director's digital ID, 100%. And they're trying to kind of, first they came for the company directors and no one spoke up because they weren't company directors. It's kind of that taking one slice at a time. Now, the funny thing is the level of non-compliance has been extremely high on the company director front. So they thought they were going to force
they're not retroactively doing it.
Well, that's what they tried to do. We're going to force every existing company director to get a director's ID. Basically, no one did it. They pushed out the deadline a few times. Oh, we're going to give you more time. We're going to give you more time. And then ultimately, to my knowledge, so I ended up deregistering a couple of entities and removing myself as a director. So I'm not a director of anything anymore, so that I couldn't be bullied into having to get it. I understand your circumstances are different, so fair enough. But I was able to play that game. But the level of disregard was actually very, very high. And I think that's one of the reasons why they haven't pushed it further, because they realized, hang on, the passive resistance to this, they're not out there protesting, but they're not signing up. The passive resistance to this was quite a lot stronger than what I think they anticipated it would be.
What I am sort of interested in at the moment as well, I've just noticed this a lot. There seems to be an overall, it's subtle. You have to look for it, but there seems to be a level of courage sort of coming over the building sector as well as the business community. And when I say it's subtle, I mean, Mark Bureaucrats is a good example. There's this guy called Matt Cameron and a host of others who are now starting to go, this is the problem. This is where we're going wrong. And these people, unfortunately, were silent for so long that we got to hear. But I am seeing like a real gentle resistance. And again, I keep coming back to the whole, oh, you're just a rich business owner. What do you know?
Yeah.
But, Punters Politics. Punters Politics commented on Mark Bouras's, is it Bourras or Bureaucrats? I forget. Bourras.
Mark Bureaucrats, I think.
Bourras, yeah. So the guy that founded Yellow Brick Road and what was the other one? Founded something. Anyways, what the
yeah, Yellow Brick Road's the one I remember.
Yeah, two big finance companies. Anyway, he was saying something about the tax system, which is something that Australia needs to have a huge overhaul about. You and I talk about it black and blue until we're black and blue. Mark Bouras's has come out and made this comment, and then you had Punters Politics in there saying, spoken like a man who doesn't understand the tax code. And I thought to myself, that's a bold call for a man who's built not one, but two very successful companies and is worth a substantial amount of money. Someone like Punters coming in and going, oh, you don't know about the tax code. Evidently, I would say he knows more. And so it's interesting because you've got people like Punters, Geordies, all these sort of like left-wing influencers who have built a big echo chamber for a long time because they weren't touched by any of the censorship. And people like yourself, people like me were. And now all of a sudden, I don't know whether it's X or it's the Trump stuff, but I am seeing a few people coming out of the woodwork starting to call this stuff out, and that
Yeah.
warms me up. I feel like
It's the
that's a
retu-
good sign.
It's the return of excellence and people losing their patience with the participation prizes, their grievance totem poles, etc. Another one who's been really great for a long time has been Steve Baxter. He was one that was speaking out all the way through, but unfortunately, yeah, there haven't been enough, and it's nice to see new ones joining. And it's another reason why, you know, as we've talked about before, we have to, as much as it is hard, and I struggle with it as well, I'll put my hand up and say sometimes, and with some people, I find this really hard. We have to welcome people as they come out of their stupor and not wag our finger in their face and go, where the fuck were you? We could have done with your help 5 years ago, and instead go, okay, if this is your time, then great. Welcome. Come join us. And it's hard, but we have to do it because we need more. We need more people. It's that simple.
Yeah, it's definitely happening. And I've noticed as well, a handful of people who are starting to make a little bit more of a bolder social media presence, and it's subtle, like they're not going flat out like you and I, but it's subtle.
Yeah.
And you can see, and this is what I was alluding to before, allowing people a space to have conversations, to ask questions that they've wanted to ask for a long time without being smacked down. And that's like, you know, and I feel like sometimes I'm a bit hard on you guys in the audience, but I do this deliberately because we want to encourage people to chat. This is not when you go, well, let me pull out my roster of all the conspiracy theories I know, because you know nothing. It's like, whoa, just let them feel comfortable. Let them put their toes into the water. You know, we'll worry about the rest later.
And that's why you rag on our audience every second episode. Yep, great. Okay, cool.
I'd say it with love. You know I love you. But anyway.
I know you do. I know you do.
I'm sitting here looking at my half-chewed dinner, just like eyeing it off because I'm starving. So anything else you want to say?
No, look, I'm good. I think we've covered all the important stuff. Oh, we do need to tell everybody the Oddcast is delayed by a day this week.
And it's my fault.
It's actually not my fault for a change. It's a miracle. I am not the problem for a change. My name's Topher Field and I am not the problem.
I'm not the problem. It's me. What's it? Taylor Swift. Oh, I fucked it up. Anyway.
Yeah, I'm the problem.
I'm the problem. It's me. Yeah. No, this is the first time in all 49 episodes that I have had to go, hey, can we shove things around a bit? So we are doing the Oddcast. It's just on Thursday instead of Wednesday. For those of you who watch Wednesday, it'll still be Thursday, 7 p.m., just not Wednesday this week. And then back to regular programming.
Tables are getting flipped. People are making rosebud jokes. This is set things off. This is set things off.
I'm sorry. It's my fault. It's my fault.
No, not to. So no, it will be Thursday, not Tuesday. Thursday night. All right.
I sincerely apologize.
I tell you what, people hate you now, Carly. You've done it.
One more thing. For those of you who ask me when we upload to Spotify, because I get this question probably 5 times a day, the reason I delay the Spotify is we need those views on YouTube. That's how we grow it. Unfortunately, Spotify doesn't put us out there like YouTube does. So I always put it over there, but we want as many eyes on the YouTube in the first couple of days as possible. That's what helps us get on their algorithm and we get pushed out and recommended. So that's why. It's not because I don't care about Spotify. I'm just trying to get the views over there first. I hope that makes sense.
Yep. Cool. All right. Well, let's get out of here. You finish your food. I'm going to go see my kids. They might not be asleep yet because I've got a big week ahead. You've got a big week ahead. So yes, buy us a coffee at Ko-fi. Make sure you head to Good People. No, it's not that one anymore. I never have to say that one again. Head to topherfield.com. Where you will find all of the merch and books and all that stuff. And keep an eye out. Yes. Oh, yes. We didn't talk about that. I agree. That AI masterclass was really, really good. And I have been more bold in how I have used Grok since watching that. I still continue just to use Grok, but I've been more bold and doing more following up and chasing things. And yes, of course, I'm going and verifying things afterwards and all the rest of it. You've got to do that. But it gave me more confidence in the little bit of AI that I use and gave me a few new platforms to explore probably during the Christmas holidays. So, Reg, thank you for bringing that up. I agree. I thought it was a really, really worthwhile session.
It was interesting. I got really, really wonderful feedback, and I appreciate that because I didn't know who I was reaching. You know, were they beginners or people who are like like you using it a little bit, or people who have been using it for like 2 years. But yes, guys, if you want to do it, it's not too late. You can do it, and I'll send you the video recording. But yeah, don't be scared of AI. It's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
Yet.
No, that's the meteorite that's coming. That's not till later in the week though, so don't worry about it. We'll talk about it on Thursday.
All right, friends.
All right. Friends,
Bye.
Romans, countrymen. Bye. Thanks for watching.